The first ever single malt scotch I ever tried was a Glenfiddich 12-year-old. And at the time, I know now, I was drinking it wrong. Oh well. So, the time has come to revisit this well and truly, I think, since they sell over 14 million bottles every year. I think we should give it another shot. What do you think? Sound good? I thought so. Before we get stuck into this, I've decided I want to start ranking whiskies, not just as the point of reference for others, but as much for myself and for my future sanity as I look back and try to remind myself what I liked and what I didn't and why, without looking through every single thing I ever wrote or recorded. Having said all of that though, there's something that's annoyed me with people that rate whiskies, which is about to be me as well, is that, well, all of this is very subjective. As an electrical engineer, I have a thing for quantitative analysis, not qualitative, but I can't quantify a taste or a smell with some kind of ranking scale, not quantitatively anyway, but that's fine. So if you can't beat them, join them. That's what I figure anyway. I don't know, maybe, don't know. Let's have a crack anyhow. So I've thought about the shortcomings of a lot of different reviewers' scales, and the biggest issue I have with all of them is that they regularly blend together cost and likability. So for example, some bottles will be really, really good but cost a fortune. So some people would give them a low ranking for a lack of affordability, whereas an average bottle that's just okay gets a better rating because it's just better value for money. So instead, my proposal is twofold. Separate quality and cost entirely and then have a matrix. The cost scale will be definitive and based on pricing in Australian dollars at the time of recording from a bricks and mortar store before sales and discounts are applied. One of the biggest retailers in Australia for alcohol is Dan Murphy's, so normally that'll be the price I quote. These prices can be revisited over time if I want to, but for now I'm just proposing the following cost brackets. Number 1, very affordable, that's less than $80 Australian. 2 is affordable for good whiskey, that's less than $150 Australian. Then there's 3, stretching the budget a bit, that's less than $300 Australian. And then number 4, serious money, and you may need serious help if you're spending it, in less than $1,000 Australian. And number 5, frankly, it's time to mortgage your house, it could lead to a divorce, probably you should never drink it, you should probably collect it only, in fact, why are you buying it? That's if it costs over $1,000 a bottle. Okay. Now, the brackets I just listed are based on the approximate grouping of bottles available as it stands today. Call them whiskey pricing brackets or something if you like. And if a bottle lands on a line, we'll just round it down. So a $150 bottle exactly would be a 2. All right, we cool? Great. Fantastic. But we also think about quality. So in terms of quality, it'll be a 1 to 5 scale. But there's one important level I've added, and that's 0. 0 means I'm never drinking this again, not even as a mixer, that's it. 1, I would buy it as a mixer, but I'm just never drinking it neat. 2, it's a nice drink for some occasional variety. A 3 is when it starts getting good. It's my go-to pleasant drink and it just makes me smile. Number 4 would be an amazing drink I would highly recommend to anybody. Drink it slowly and enjoy it. And a number 5 is top shelf. It's incredible. Savor every single drop. It's so good, it'll make me giggle. It is that good. Now, when I'm rating a bottle of whiskey in future, I'll identify any of those with a batch reference against those that are considered to be a core range, along with the time and date of the bottle. That way, over time, we can track differences if we revisit in future and re-baseline the ratings as inflation and supply and demand, import tariffs, and all that other stuff affect cost over time. Oh, and there's no half scores. I'll be putting everything in one box. Every one I try will go in one box and one box only. Each box will be coloured in one of 4 colours based on where it sits in the matrix. Firstly, red. You probably shouldn't invest in this. Orange, we're improving. Consider investing only if you're really keen. And yellow, a few bottles in this category perhaps for special occasions. And green is something you should generally keep stock of on hand anytime. This will be linked on every episode and displayed on each too. The colouring is intentionally budget conscious, so there's a budget slant. It assumes that you have some means, but you aren't rolling in millions of dollars. Let's be honest, if you are, you just buy whatever you want, and you don't care if you like it or not, probably. I mean, who are those people anyway? I know they exist, I'm just never going to be one of them, and that's fine. Anyway, so I've gone back over my already published episodes and added a ranking in the text notes for future reference. Okay, alrighty then. Enough about that. Now it's time to talk about Glenfiddich. Now, like the Jameson original I reviewed in the last episode, this also comes in a green bottle. I found out that, well, one reason why green glass is used is because it's an attempt to reduce the amount of natural light that enters the bottle. Thinking being that this'll slow any degradation of the whiskey due to light. I'm not really sure it's that effective, and the studies I found were focused on wine specifically, and it has to be the right shade of green for the maximum protection and so on. Either way, I like Bruichladdich solution where they use an opaque coating on the outside of the bottle. It seems to be a better idea if your goal is to prevent light getting in, but anyhow, whatever. Never mind. That's the green bottle thing, if you're interested. Now, Glenfiddich 12-year-old 700ml goes for about $77 at Dan Murphy's. It's 40% ABV, chill filtered and coloured, and it is considered by Glenfiddich to be a core range whiskey. Selling that many? You'd really hope so. The distillery was built by the famous William Grant, and as the story goes, in the summer of 1888, he set about to build the best dram in the valley. And when it was finished the following year, he named it Glenfiddich, which is Gaelic for Valley of the Deer, and explains the logo of a stag deer on the front of every bottle. Little stag on the front of the bottle. Pretty cool. Glenfiddich's located in the village of Dufftown in the borough of Moray, which falls within the Speyside region of Scotland. The distillery is located in the glen off the River Fiddick. In the 1950s, they built their own cooperage on site to make their barrels and launched their iconic triangular-shaped bottle, which is still used today. They can produce a staggering 21 million litres every year, and it's one of the few remaining original family-owned distilleries left in the world. Wow. Now, if you can't see, I can see why people respect Glenfiddich after all that. But enough about all that. It's time to get to the whiskey itself. Now, the Glenfiddich website describes the 12-year like this. On the nose, distinctively fresh and fruity with a hint of pear, beautifully crafted and delicately balanced. Taste is characteristic sweet fruity notes, develops into butterscotch, cream, malt, and subtle oak flavours. And on the finish, a long, smooth, and mellow finish. Love a mellow finish. All right, let's have a taste now. Start with the colour. It's definitely a slightly darker, amberish colour. To be perfectly honest, it's coloured, so I don't know. I prefer with colour. I have to mention it, I guess, but honestly, I don't think it's that big a deal if you've got something that's coloured, because you can't tell what its colour really is. In terms of legs, there are some skinny, fast-running legs, which is what I would expect from something that's chill-filtered. A little bit of frosting on the glass there. That's just because I've got the air conditioner running in the booth, so it's just frost up a little bit. Let's see what we get on the nose. I definitely get pear. Just fruity, but I can definitely pick out that pear. Apart from that, little sweet, not overly sweet. Let's see what it tastes like. Oh, I definitely get butterscotch from that. Absolutely. And it gets a little bit creamy after about the first 5 or 6 seconds on the tongue. I can really get that creaminess. It starts just coming out of nowhere. It's kind of nice. It's it has a relatively smooth finish. Got a little bit of afterburn, not too bad. It is a 12-year, so I would expect it to have a little bit of burn on the finish. I'm not sure I'd describe it as mellow though. I mean, it's nice, but I struggle with the definition of what mellow feels like or tastes like. Anyway, let's try again. It's not overly sweet. I know they say in the tasty notes it's characteristic sweet fruity notes, but I don't know. I think it's definitely... It's not that sweet to me. It's lovely, don't get me wrong, it's nice, but I wouldn't describe it as overly sweet. But that butterscotch is lovely. On the second tasting, the butterscotch is not quite so strong, but that creaminess comes out, and I'm starting to get more of those the oaky overtones sort of coming in on that as well. It is quite delightful, and I can see why they sell so many of them. And for the price, it is a single malt. That's not bad. So ultimately, I have to say, it's a pretty damn good scotch. It's not the best I've ever had. It certainly is quite good, and it certainly makes me feel bad about the way I used to feel about it. I never used to understand it. But I think it is nice on the right occasion. Seems to be perfectly pleasant. So now I've gone to all this trouble describing qualitative, quantitative, and all that sort of stuff. Where does this actually sit on those scales? Well, first of all, the obvious and simple one is cost. So given the price of the bottle, clearly this falls into a number 1 in cost. So it's very affordable. It's less than $80. That's not bad. In terms of the quality, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. I think ultimately I would say, look, it's a nice drink for a little bit of occasional variety, I think. I'd struggle to say that it makes me smile. It's not a drink that I would just go to and say, oh, I've got to have, I really feel like a Glenfiddich right now, number 12. So I would suggest it's more of a nice drink for some occasional variety. And if we look on our chart on the screen, you'll see now that comes in as a green, which you should generally keep stock of on hand simply because it's affordable. It's affordable and it's nice for something different. But it's the sort of bottle that I'd expect to have and to keep for a reasonable period of time without blowing through it in an evening, for example. Certainly a nice one to share with friends, but yeah. I mean, it is quite delightful. Again, I can see exactly why it's so popular. It's a great drink. If you haven't tried one, you probably should and see what all the fuss is about. And that's it for now. Thank you so much. Cheers. See you next time. You can see why people like that. Not too bad.